Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 35 of Old Guard vs. New Blood. And this is SEO in 2023, the book preview edition, because Majestic are coming out with, or have come out with a book. If you're lucky enough to be watching this on YouTube or in video, then you'll be able to see the book. Now available in all good Amazon stores near you, SEO in 2023. It's got 500 pages of tips from 101 of the world's leading SEO experts, three of which I'm delighted to say I've got in the studio with me today. So Ian, Julia, and Kirsten, hello to all of you. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Ian.
Hello.
Oh, so let me start by asking you guys to introduce yourselves. Ian, why don't you head off? Tell us about yourself. Who are you? Where you come from? And where are you? Since we've got a very international contingent as usual in the group.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm Ian Helms. My pronouns are he, they. I am based in Chicago, and I'm the director of growth marketing at Q Digital. We're the country's largest LGBTQ media site.
Excellent. I just saw a football match with another. It's the second pitch invader with a rainbow flag on there.
Yes.
So the message is getting in at the World Cup. So. Thanks very much for coming on, Ian, and Julia-Carolin Zeng, or Julia as we refreshingly can call her without having to have the double-barreled first name. Julia, how are you? Where are you? And where do you come from? What do you do?
Yeah, hi, I'm Julia. I'm freelance SEO consultant. I'm currently in Madeira. It's quite sunny here. I'm usually based in London, originally from Germany, and I specialize in international SEO and SEO for SaaS products. So bringing the languages in and quite content-heavy websites, I would say.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for coming in from Madeira. So hopefully well, it seems like the internet's fine there. We're not quite so sure about Kirsten's internet connection for the duration. Kirsten, where are you? What are you doing? Where do you come from?
Hello, everyone. Similar to Julia, I'm also originally from Germany. I'm usually UK London based, but currently I'm in Brazil. And yes, my internet connection is a bit dodgy from time to time, so hopefully it lasts. I'm currently the SEO and content lead at Seed Legals. Seed Legals is a legal tech platform that helps startups simplify their legal things they need to take care of when they do option schemes, funding rounds, and other things that startups do. And yeah, I've been doing SEO for numerous years, in-house agency side, and also currently focusing heavily on content as well.
So Kirsten, just how do I spell Seed Legal?
SEED, seed, like seed funding, like a seed round.
Seed
yes.
Legal. Okay, great.
Yes,
okay.
Seed Legals.
Thanks ever so much for coming on the show. And just before we dive into all of your tips and other tips you might have seen in the book, we are lucky our producer is of course the producer of the book as well. So David Bain, thanks very much for all the effort in putting all this thing together. And is there anything I should have said at the start of the show? Oh, I'll tell you what I should have said at the start of the show. This is going to be my last show, so I'm stepping back. We're going to change things around in 2023 ourselves at Majestic, and we're going to have a different lead for podcasts and things. And David's going to be running things a bit more centrally on the show, because I think we've decided that the old guard has got a little old in the tooth, really. So I'm going to pull back and do some other bits, but you'll still see me around. So David, how are you?
Well, very good, thank you. Yeah, as you said, still see you around. So we're looking forward to continuing seeing you in different circumstances, different roles, I guess. But one thing you mentioned to begin with was the book is available in all bookstores or are available on Amazon at the moment. It actually gets published on the 6th of December. So
right.
It'll be available to the public then. If anyone watching wants to go to SEOin2023.com, you can sign up for the email list there, get alerted to when the book actually goes live. We're going to do a mammoth launch live stream as well. That'll be on the 6th itself as well. So sign up to that email list and we'll let you know when that happens.
Yeah, it's going to be, you just have that on for the whole day. You've got hours and hours of tips and ideas and people coming on. So, but this is the preview of the live launch. So we're all we're all ahead of the game here and got an opportunity to dive into things. What was your tip in the book, Julia?
My tip is for 2023 to focus more on intent. And by that, I don't mean just looking at tools and see, does it say commercial or informational intent or what all the other things are that it says, but by looking at the SERPs results. So to check directly, what does Google show? What type of content is produced for a certain search query, and really understanding what is the question that a user has that stands behind a keyword, and then answering that question with the content.
Excellent. We'll come back to user intent then. We'll come back to all of these ideas, but I just wanted to get everyone's, initial things that they put into the book. Ian, what about you? What did you throw in there?
Yeah, my tip for 2023 is to focus on quality over quantity, especially with Google's helpful content update recently. We all know that you can't just churn out a bunch of poor content and expect to get high rankings, or at least sustained rankings over time. So that's my tip for 2023.
Okay, kind of a little related, but slightly sideways on. And then Kerstin, you were also slightly sideways onto that as well.
Slightly related, slightly different angle. But yeah, my tip for 2023 is to stop relying on tools, roll up your sleeves and do the work. I think there are some things that tools are really, really good for. And then there are other things where they could even be misleading and send you down a rabbit hole of low priority things you should probably not be focusing on.
So let's start on that one, because obviously Majestic's a tool, but it's not a tool for actually rolling up your sleeves and doing things. It's a reporting tool. It crawls, so we're not scared of that comment. But where are tools taking us down rabbit holes? Let's start with there. I mean, what sorts of things go wrong with tools?
Let me try to provide a little bit of context and break it down. So to start on the positive note, I think tools are really good for doing things at scale, to do your initial audits, to set up monitoring alerts, automate things. Really, really useful stuff you can do with tools. But then on the other hand, you might miss opportunities when it comes to keyword research. You might see, there's no volume behind this keyword or this topic cluster, and you decide to ignore it. And actually, it would be really relevant for you, for your website, for your audience, and it would drive conversions, but you've dismissed it because a tool said otherwise. Success, just looking at rankings. Are they improving? Are they not improving? If you only focus on that, you might miss important business goals. So again, there's a lot of manual work to be done. And then also priorities. And I think this is where you could get stuck in the rabbit hole and where you could maybe focus on the wrong things. So there might be technical errors that are flagged as the highest priority. But actually, when you dig deeper, when you look at other parts of your website, when you do a competitor benchmark, you might find that's not going to move the needle for you. Or if you see content being flagged as, this topic is not optimized and you need to optimize these 5 articles, and you spend time on that, you put your writers on it, and you optimize all of these articles, but they're actually not the content that drives business and that drives conversions, and you've just neglected all of the other topics that, yes, maybe they were not flagged in the tool, but they would have made a difference in terms of your business goals.
That's interesting, because sorry, jump in there, Julia. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I just would like to add on and go a bit away from the content and keyword research focus thing. Google Search Console, the no indexation report. I hear it quite often from clients. They're like, we have so many pages here flagged as not being indexed. And then I look into this and I see, yeah, it's flagged as it's disallowed in robots.txt, where I'm like, well, we did disallow that, or we disallowed that whole folder because we wanted to be not indexed. So it's not actually an issue, but when you look at these graphs and see the stats, it tells you a huge number of pages is suddenly gone from the index. And clients can quite often get a bit freaked out about these things.
Yeah,
They can. Go on in.
I was going to add another thought to that too, from personal experience. We, in a previous role, automated a lot of our processes that we were doing, and it helped lead to efficiency, of course. But at the same time, the issue, I guess, for lack of better words, that it created was that not everybody fully understood then how the automation worked, what the formulas or the algorithms and things that were going into producing the output were. And so then they couldn't troubleshoot. They didn't necessarily have the background into understanding what fed the data and why the decision was ultimately made to do or not do a particular thing based on that automation that we were creating. And the same kind of plays into tools like Search Console, SEMrush, any of the other like keyword research tools that people might be using, where if you don't understand exactly how the data is coming in or what the what's feeding that, you might come out with biased opinions or incorrect priorities as well.
Well, I wanted to come on to keyword research tools because I think they're a pretty good example of where numbers can be misleading. And because I noticed that Mark Williams Cook, who also runs a tool, to be fair, in the book said, focus on zero volume. Look at zero. Don't throw out zero volume keywords. So keyword research tool can say that there's no keyword volume for a particular phrase or idea, but in actual fact that could be the very one that is driving your whole business forward, particularly if it happens to involve your brand name, of course. But the keyword research tools, or a lot of the keyword research tools, seem to be just spewing out numbers of volumes and things like that, and that's going to send you in the wrong kind of direction. And Kerstin, you talked about sort of zero volume keywords as an example of where that goes. But do you think that more and more we're going to be making mistakes if we're building content plans just around keyword volume? So Kerstin, do you want to go with that?
Yeah, I think you want to do both, right? You want to use tools initially, but you want to combine that with your own thinking. I mean, that's what you should probably always do. But I think, if we want to stay with search volume, you might even be in a space where the tools are not really telling you much at all. So for example, I'm in the legal tech space and more specifically in the startup space. So for me, I just don't get enough data from tools. I need to rely on other sources, and I think you should do that anyway. And there are brilliant sources that you already have. You might have internal search data, you might have a customer support team, you have a sales team, you have your customers, and you can see what their feedback is. There's so much information that you can take in. You can dump it somewhere, cluster it, and then go from there. So it doesn't necessarily need to be based on keyword research tools. But yes, of course.
And I guess your place is a very good example to Julia's point of user intent. That so let's say it's a child custody question that the user's got. They've got a very personal experience. They've got a very specific issue that they want to come in, and they're not just talking going to type in and child custody and expect their whole world to be responded to. They're going to have something very, very specific, and user intent there becomes a good example, I think of where you've got to really try and answer the individual's question. So I think
absolutely.
It's good. Anyone else got any thoughts on keyword research as an example of a tool that maybe has had its day?
I mean, I agree a lot with what Kerstin's saying. The piece that I think is also exciting and unique about thinking with your brain and not trusting the tools to start is I have done a lot with predictive keyword research. And so when you're thinking about keywords that are seasonally relevant or like yearly, keywords with years in them, or even if you're looking at expanding into a niche that hasn't really been explored or picked up or searched for before because you're maybe creating a new space, you can look at what's being done in other areas and you can usually cross-reference what the keyword search volumes or trends, how they grew, and explore intent around those types of industries to then map that into what you're doing and what your industry is and how you're approaching your content and SEO. And there's not always keywords like Kerstin is saying as well that show up in the tools in that case, but you can sort of formulate them based on existing data that you have.
And I find as well that on keywords. I mean, I put this one into a presentation that, a word like Mustang, you just don't know whether the person is interested in a horse or a car at that particular point. And even when they start putting things like horsepower around there, you don't necessarily know. but certainly where words are labels for ideas, I think. This is my kind of belief, and so when you're focusing on to your point, Ian, of quality over quantity, really when you're trying to start answering user intent, so Julia's point of user intent, Kerstin's point of don't use tools, your point of quality over quantity, I think that all comes down to really trying to help the user. It goes back to what Google's been saying for a number of years of trying to help the user. So how do you propose that we throw out those tools in and focus on quality?
Gosh, I mean, I think one of the threads that runs through the book of recommendations is to put yourself in the shoes of your audience, and then also to explore the search engine results pages. And so, do some of these searches that you think might be relevant, see what's coming up on the search engine results pages, think about what your pros and cons of the service or tool or whatever you're offering are, and then find where they all meet together and create content that intersects with the intent, with what people are looking for, with what you have to offer. And that's going to be your magic key, which I think talking about quality over quantity, and I think somebody mentioned earlier too the perfectionism. Maybe that was in the pre-call, which we can get to. But you don't want to focus on making something so quality or so perfect that then you don't produce anything. So there is a caveat to the quantity piece, where you can't just get so bogged down in trying to make something so perfect that you then ultimately never publish. And I'd love to hear even from Kerstin on the legal side, having also come from a software as a service in the past that was a legal focused immigration technology. We had a lot of red tape and a lot of legal review and compliance issues that we needed to always work through. And so the intersection of what people are searching and what legal could approve and what we could say were not always easy to meet. So it's easier said than done sometimes, is kind of my point.
So yeah, and well, Kerstin, you're welcome to jump in on that. But I was going to go back to Julia and say, right, this user intent, focus, and quality. Is there something? I mean, how do you approach user intent yourself? Well, let me start with that.
So usually I do my initial keyword research and create a content plan that is then based on topics. So the keywords in that sense help me identify what are the topic clusters. Mm-hmm. And then when I prepare a brief for a writer, I take, okay, these are now the keywords that are relevant for this one page. So we can target all of this here together on one page. When I create the brief, I look at the SERPs and I check, okay, what is it that Google is showing here? Is there, for example, a video? Is there a knowledge graph? Is it producing listicles of all kinds? And then I tell the writer, look, this is what we need to do. And if there's a lot of video content for a topic, then I also tell my client, well, instead of just writing a blog post about it, we should probably produce a video. Mm-hmm. And then if everything is listicles, then also what we produce should probably be a listicle. And then I also look at these different pages that are ranking highly and see what exactly are they doing, what are they talking about, and then I tell the writer, instead of giving, yeah, here are your keywords and now write 1,000 words, I'm saying, okay, this here are the keywords that fit in the cluster, things you should somehow talk about, but these are your paragraphs, the things that you should cover on the page. So there should be an intro paragraph that explains this concept. There should be here something with maybe a nice visual graph, whatever the topic is, depends. But this is usually what I tell my writer, to meet that intent and answer the question that stands behind a keyword or several keywords.
Kirsten?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I think that's also a very good example, Julia said, how you put together briefs for writers. And sometimes you have tools that create briefs for you, and they might give you an average of how many words an article should have. And I think that's all well and good, but I wouldn't necessarily rely on that. So even when it comes to creating a brief, I think the manual work is already so important, and we work in a very similar way. Our writers, when they have the topic, they have maybe the keyword focus, they always check manually what comes up in search results, what is the intent behind the search query, and then the ultimate question that we always ask for every piece of content is what is there and how can we do something that is so much better than that. And that's exactly how we operate as well.
That's a great point. I think to the point that everybody's making, it's not just copying what's in the top of the search engine results pages. You're not going to have the same exact headers, the same exact, paragraph structure. You want to model off of that, but not one-to-one, because if you're just creating the same thing, Google is going to recognize that. And that's, again, going back to the helpful content update, something that they're trying to avoid happening. And so it is important to have that unique perspective and make sure that you're bringing something new and fresh and relevant and unique to the table, on top of, giving people what they want to see.
Do you think? But I agree with absolutely everybody. But let me throw a spanner in the works and say, we're getting quicker at reacting to what Google is demanding that we should do next. I think as an SEO, as an industry, we've learned to be more agile, and as Google changes a certain result, we kind of adapt our content effectively to try and work with that. But I sort of feel that Google's helpful content update in particular has highlighted that a lot of results that are definitely all answering the question, but they're all answering it in the same sort of style. They're defining the main issues at the top, and then they're talking about some of the underlying problems and questions and FAQs that are around the subject matter, and then going down, and you ended up with this content, which, when I look at a lot of those results, they're starting to look a little vanilla, and I'm guilty as everybody else at creating that content, but we're doing that because Google is not necessarily spotting that one idea that is different to everybody else's, or that theme that's very different to everybody else's. Do you think Google's got a problem with the helpful content update, and how do we break through that, or is it, are we going to break through that? I don't know if anyone wants to take that on.
I'll jump in with the most egregious one that I think everybody will know is recipe content is one of the worst when it comes to, let me tell you all of these things about, like, it's an apple pie recipe, let me tell you about what apples are and the different varieties of apples and which apples are perfect for baking and how to make a crust and how to do lattice on top. And then finally, 2,500 words later, you get down to the actual recipe that you want to see. That's something that, if you're modeling your content off of that, you're going to continue to feed the negative cycle of giving people what they don't want to see, but that Google once said that they thought that they wanted people to see, maybe is kind of what you're getting at. And I've worked on recipe sites before where we don't have the 1,000 words. It's literally just the recipe and maybe a short intro paragraph, like a cookbook might present it. And we get page 1 rankings, top of the page, top of the recipe grid. And so there's proof that you don't need that all of the time. And I think part of, these algorithm updates and these major rollouts are are that they're not perfect right away, but that they continue to tweak them and make them get better over time. And so I do think that the unique content and the pieces that do have aspects that are not exactly what everybody else is doing can and have and will continue to start to mix in a little bit better. And we've seen that with like nested results or indented results rather, and things like that, where Google's possibly even trying to test what people are maybe looking for, how to even shift the results and better match the intent that people are maybe looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, we got a question in the, well, we've got a couple of people. So Monsi Cano is here but can't stay, so she might have gone. I suspect she's gone off to the UK search wars, which are on this evening. So hi, Monsi, thanks for coming in. But Hobby Tourist, I'm not sure if I understand the question, so I'm going to read it out. He says in a couple of sentences, I spotted that keywords medical marijuana have not been detected in the topic cluster of cancer. So the keyword cancer has not been detected in the topic cluster of medical marijuana. So saying that topical clusters are off-dated. I don't know if that's off-dated. I'm not sure if that's the right word from an SEO point of view. Can you express yourself about updating topic clusters? I guess thing number one there is, why would medical marijuana be associated with the topical cluster? So I don't know whether maybe I don't know the subject matter well enough, but I'm not quite sure if I understand what Hobby's asking there. So can anyone jump in? Julia?
I have an idea, and I think it relates to how do you initially identify what your topic clusters should be. And the way how I do it, instead of just typing a word into something that then suggests me a million keywords, is I identify who are the competitors in more than one sense. So the direct business competitors, and also other websites that are talking about my topic amongst other topics. And then do basically a gap analysis and see what content do we already have. So to really get an overview of what are all these big topics out there, and then categorize them in like one top level category and subcategories. And I see how it can happen when you have a topic like medical marijuana, how lots of websites are probably not talking about it as a use for cancer patients.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do your gap analysis right, it should come up as one of the topics.
Right. I guess if you're writing around cancer, you're not necessarily going to be talking about medical marijuana unless you've got that as a product in your, the people that are going to come back for cancer are going to be the Pfizers of this world, or the people with, medical cancer products, I would guess. But if you're going to type in medical marijuana, then I guess the question is, does it give you cancer? I suspect that's the user intent question. Part of that is does marijuana give you cancer? Which is probably a different question to, how do I go and buy some medical marijuana? Possibly.
I think more in the sense of how medical marijuana could help with some of the issues that you have when you have cancer or other illnesses, diseases, that they take it, for example, to take away the pain as like a form of painkiller and so on. But this, again, I see how it can easily be missed in a gap analysis if nobody is making that connection yet. But this is where talking to experts comes in, and technically the business owner, or in my case, my client, they should know what they're talking about, why they're trying to sell this medical marijuana, and who the target audience is. So there's also a lot of communication always involved in these things. Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. Kerstin, sorry, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the comment meant medical marijuana was not in the topic cluster, or if it was there and it wasn't ranking. But I think it could also be that it might be a controversial topic that might not be medically proven. So that could have something to do with it, why it's not there, or why it's maybe not. I guess it depends on the website. If it's all facts and this is proven medical advice, then maybe it's a topic that doesn't fit 100%.
And of course, marijuana is not legal in all countries, all states, whatever. And so so Google's probably got a whole algorithm about when it can and can't use the word marijuana or medical marijuana or marijuana in the concept of medicine or whatever in there as well. So there's a whole load of things that might be happening with that particular one, which just goes to show that you need to pay attention to user intent more, because you've got to make sure that, you know, the question is unambiguous for the user, is answered unambiguously for the user. Okay, so let me just I wrote in the book as well, so I decided to go really off piste, and bear with me here, because I kind of thought, you know, I've been doing the prediction for next year's and didn't want to come up with the same idea, and so I talked about the possibility next year of augmented reality. So augmented reality, you've got glasses on that, you know, you're out looking at something, and then and it sort of overlays some information. So you could be sitting at the Tower of London or the Empire State Building, and it suddenly has a whole load of facts that appear in your glasses for augmented reality. So and I'm thinking, well, if you used location schema on your content, then it might be much easier for a search engine to then pick that information up and throw it into an augmented reality situation. So am I about 2 years ahead of my time on that one, and talking rubbish, or is that a crystal ball idea that's worth some merit of thinking about schema outside the box and where it might be used? Anyone want to come back and laugh at me on that one?
I think it's definitely. I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing about the idea. I think it's a good concept. Well, if we're gonna walk around with you know, Google Glass or other glasses in 2023, I would say probably not. But that's not to say using schema markup is a bad idea. So I would suggest to do that anyway, and then we can see if that'll benefit our glasses in the near or further away future.
Well, to be fair, it's not just glasses, because you've got a Google View where you can sort of hold up already your Android to a thing and get some overlay of stuff. So there's stuff that's already happening that is only going to grow. And I saw Facebook or Meta are working with Ray-Ban. So if they're working with Ray-Ban, there's only one way I can imagine that they're working with Ray-Ban to come out with a product, and it's going to be an augmented reality product. So I do think that, you know, there's a lot of possibilities within schema to go to Wembley Stadium and it'll put it up and it'll show you the fixtures for coming months and things like that. And maybe I'm being out of the ballpark, so to speak, to mix my metaphors between Wembley and somewhere in, you know, and baseball parks. But anyway, I you know, it seems to me that what I'm trying to get to is that search may become more diverse in where people are looking for things, and that's happening. You know, people are asking friends in Facebook about, you know, best place to go to a restaurant rather than asking a search engine, for example. And in fact, they're asking friends more and more. I think so is there this possibility that search is finally going to break away from just Google SERPs? And if so, how might that be? Ian, is there anything you want to come in with there?
Yeah. I mean, there's all the talk about TikTok these days, right? Like, if you're looking
a good example. Yeah.
If you're looking for fashion trends or think the hottest things to do in a city, those are things that people are now going to TikTok more so than to Google, because you know, there's a lot more fresh, relevant, new content constantly being churned out. It's way more visual, like you're saying. So I think it's like maybe the step, like half step in between where you're describing, Dixon, the world going with augmented reality and where we're at now, where you can see and explore places before you actually go to them, to understand whether or not it's something that you want, or see how particular clothing fits on a particular person. And I think that there is a valid point about getting ahead of the game and focusing on some of those efforts and finding ways to, you know, whether it's schema like you're talking about or what have you, to get your content seen in different ways or different formats. But at the same time, like, it goes back to prioritization. And right now, I don't think personally that we're at a point where the world is ready to adopt all of the technologies and learn how to to go about that, that not all of the companies that are out there in the world have the budgets to create the type of augmented realities, even, you know, Meta dropping a lot of what they've been working on for the metaverse. So I think there's definitely something there, but it's a balance of, you know, where we're going to get where we are now and how to user intent and the quality that people are looking for in the meantime.
I do appreciate that my idea was a bit out there, but you know, but as Kerstin says, you know, schema is something that's there anyway, and it's because obviously whatever search technology is going to jump in, they're not going to jump in and then expect everybody to suddenly come up with new ideas. They're going to jump on something that's already there, and it seems to me that schema is developing at quite a pace now, and that gives machines a ready way to try and find answers that it didn't have, much more structured than before. So hopefully the schema idea is the underlying task, not necessarily saying, right, let's go and find the best pair of augmented reality glasses to wear and optimize for that. But you also make the point on TikTok, I think, you know, that's a really interesting way of searching, because it's like Google Discover in a way, in that TikTok is influencing you based on your own choices. So you choose what you want to see next and what you're liking and what you're not liking. And Google's Discover is similar in that it's working on your patterns and your history to try and sort of come up on as to what sort of things are interesting to you. So that's a totally different way of searching, or rather it's a different way of being influenced. So you're not necessarily actually searching for something, but definitely you can guide a message and a brand down to a particular type of user based on the kind of content that you put out there, I think. And I think that's something for 2023 as well, that, you know, it becomes more and more important to segment your business and understand your user and be able to define your user, because there's no point in creating content that's going to never get into that TikTok feed, for example. So, you know, is the type of content that you're going to be coming up with going to change in 2023, or are you do you think you'll carry on doing what you've always done? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I think I'll jump in. Absolutely. As social media evolves, as the way that people are expecting to see content, I think as the SERP evolves, there was a search that I did recently where I think the top 50% of the page was image, story, discover, news based, and didn't have any traditional search results in it. And so, you know, even not like video aside, which is already a kind of a hot topic in a way, just even focusing on imagery and not relying on stock images and finding ways to break through that is also, I think, something that everyone needs to start thinking about and prioritizing as well too, because there's nothing worse than seeing the same stock image on every single post about the same thing, because nobody has a unique perspective on it or whatever. And so finding ways also, I think, quality over quantity wise, to repurpose content. I think that's the biggest missed opportunity that a lot of people have, which is, you know, taking that listicle, making it into a carousel for Instagram, making it into a reel or a TikTok video, finding ways to take what's effective and put it into the different formats that people are going to find it on, and how they're going to like to possibly see it and discover your brand through.
So let me just bring in David here, if I may. David, you're you put the whole book together, and I'll let you save your best bits for your marathon session on the 6th. But you did pick out a few bits at towards in your closing thoughts, and you picked out all sorts of interesting ideas. But review of your content quality or lack thereof, and things from all sorts of people, really. Is there something in that you think plays to this user intent that was in the book that
I mean, to a certain degree, yes. Kind of following on from what Ian was saying, I just want to say, first of all, was I highlighted one key tip from each chapter, and that's a tip that resonated with me. But what I also encourage the reader to do is actually, you know, hopefully read all the book and actually decide for themselves which one tip from each chapter resonated with them is most suitable for them and their business, and maybe run with that, because there are 101 tips in the book and it's very difficult to implement everything. So you have to decide what's most suitable for yourself. So select a tip from each chapter is what I was saying there towards the end. But following on from what Ian was saying, and talking about TikTok and what you were saying about SEO for discovery, almost, and optimizing for discovery as opposed to for search. Mark McDonald in chapter 1 said, move from SEOing for information retrieval to SEOing for information suggestion. So that's to a certain degree.
Okay, yeah. So you're basically feeding the person with. So you're basically feeding the idea to your segmented market, really. So it's kind of where search meets advertising.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost coming up with what the user wants before they actually actively search for it.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting stuff.
All
right. Go on, Kerstin.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that's basically what we're doing with Google Discover already, right? Google is surfacing content that you might be interested in. So I think it's definitely, if you have the capacity, good to have an eye on that and try to anticipate what could be relevant.
Sorry, Julia, go on.
Yeah. So one thing that is, I guess, getting also more important, or was always super important, and Dixon, you're gonna love this, is internal links. So how are we connecting our content to one another? Are we guiding the user down a journey with further readings and all of that? And that should also be always taken into account when we're writing content. Like, how does it fit in overall with the website?
Obviously, I love that. Thank you very much, Julia. And Jan Willem Bobbink is somebody that David pulled out in his best idea for chapter 10 as well. So which was optimize your internal links. So, but you could rely on a tool to do that if you wanted to, but I'm not going to go there today. Guys, we've reached the end of our allotted time again, and so I absolutely want to say thanks ever so much for coming along. Just before I ask people, how they can get how people can get hold of you if they want to. Obviously, they can read the book. But David, what are we going to be doing in 2024 or 2023 in terms of the podcasts and things? Because this is it. This is my last.
I had to plan 2024 there.
Oh right, okay. Sorry, no. You can get on there, but I'm gonna step back. I'll be around whenever you need me. But have you got any thoughts yet as to how you're going to take the show in a different direction?
Well, I'm not sure about a different direction, but certainly in terms of the first show of 2023, we've got that lined up. That's going to be how to set your SEO strategy for 2023. That's going to be on January the 4th at 5 p.m. GMT, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 3 great guests lined up for that: Maria White, Dre De Vera, and Crystal Carter. So January 4th, 5 p.m. Sign up at majestic.com/webinars. And of course, the URL that I want to mention as well is seoin2023.com. That's where you need to sign up to actually watch this live stream launch of the book SEO in 2023.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, David. And guys, just before we go, where do people find out about you? How can they get hold of you? Julia, do you want to head off there?
Yes, so the easiest way, I guess, is to reach out via email, and that is info@charlieonthemove.com. That's my own business, or LinkedIn. You find me if you just type in the name as you see it right now on screen.
Yeah, but people can't. So it's Julia-Carolin Zeng, Zeng. So that's great. Thanks very much. Kerstin, how do they get hold of you?
I'm probably most responsive on LinkedIn, so that would be the preferred channel. If you find me there with my name, should come up. Otherwise, Kerstin Reichert, Seed Legals, should give you the right search result.
And Seed being SWED. Ian, how do they find you?
Similarly, LinkedIn or Twitter while it's still around. My handle across all social is at Ian Helms, so you can find me there.
And Ian's IAN as opposed to IAIN. So guys, thank you ever so much. What I learned at the end there is we should all be optimizing for LinkedIn, it would seem. But we'll get onto that in a different year. Thank you ever so much for coming onto the show. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys have a lovely Christmas, and see you in cyberspace in 2023. Bye, guys.